Hello, everyone. Welcome to the lecture on the chapter Socrates and the Sophists. Again, I repeat once more, these lectures are kind of an overview to help you, to guide you uh, in reading the chapter and understanding the chapter better, but they are not a substitution for reading the chapter. The same goes for the PowerPoints. So the subtitle uh, of this chapter is Rhetoric, Relativism, and the Search for Truth, and we're going to say something about relativism skepticism. But let me begin first with putting things into sort of a historical context. This is not a history course, but as you will see, history and politics are very important for uh, the fruition of philosophy, Greek philosophy especially. Um, so the first thing I think that you should do is sort of put yourself within the temporal context of when Socrates lived, because Socrates is going to be sort of the central figure. We got the pre-Socratics, the philosophers who went before Socrates, and then we have Socrates, and then of course we have the major figures in the history of philosophy, Western philosophy, which are Plato and Aristotle, and they are all connected because Socrates never wrote anything, as you will find out later in this lecture, and Plato was Socrates' disciple, and Aristotle was Plato's disciple. Uh, so the the dates then are from 470 BCE to 399 BCE. Uh, so Socrates lived for those 70 years in the 5th century of Greece. Now, in Athens. Now, the question is, we need to know more about that time period, and we need to know more about Athens. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about this. First of all, don't think of Greece as a nation, or as a country like we think of, Greece today as a country or the United States. Instead, think of it more as independent, small countries that share a very similar culture and language. Okay, so they're called the Greek city-states, and they function independently, as you will see. But in some parts of historically, they have come together to work as one. Now there are two wars, and these are very prolonged and long wars. The first war is the Greco-Persian Wars. Those wars, they are at the beginning of the 5th century, so they start like at 499 and they go all the way to 449, so about 50 years. You have to understand that these were prolonged wars. I mean, they might have battles every 10 years. So you're talking, they would have to go back, regroup, and then come back. And so there is how much you would like to get into the details of the war is up to you in the questions. What's important for me are two things. One is to demonstrate to me that you have read the text and understand the text. If you at some times want to cite certain things that you feel are important, that's fine, but do not cite the text too much. If it has to be proportional to the length of your answer. So if you have a 200-word response, we don't want 150 of those words to be from a citation. Okay, so that's one purpose in you got to make sure that you demonstrate to me that you've read the text. And the other thing that I want is not so much the history itself, but how the history affected philosophy and thinking of the time. Okay, so the first war, the Greco-Persian Wars, these first 50 years, are against the Persian Empire, which is an incredibly large and powerful uh, empire. And so we can imagine the city-states here, in this case, all the powerful city-states such as Athens and Sparta, coming together as one. And so there is a revitalization here of Greek culture, of Greek power. There's also a lot of luck. If you read the history, you'll see that the Persians had difficulties with their ships. They ran into some very major storms that so there, if you've seen the movie 300, this is the Greco-Persian War. It's one of I think the second large battle that took place around 490 or BCE. So these at the end of the day, what is happening here is that Greece is actually becoming a powerful state itself. In particular, here is Athens and Sparta. These are the two city-states that prevail, that excel in war. Sparta for its military prowess, Athens for its incredible navy. So this war is really what is a catalyst to the Greek Golden Age. It's when Greece was at its height. Okay, now, in addition to the confidence, the power, you see that the defeating the Persians gives to the Greeks is psychological too. I mean, they become an incredibly confident, powerful state. But in addition to this, politically, we have an incredible leader that arises in Athens, and this leader is called Pericles. And Pericles ruled from 461 to 429. So those 30 years are at the heart of Socrates' life. So Socrates was living in the golden age of Greece, and this is incredibly important. Now, during Pericles' rule, we had the innovative political system that we call today democracy, where the people decided and the people ruled. Now, this sense of confidence, of openness to the world and to new ideas, innovation, was exciting, and this gives this openness, openness of ideas, of debate, okay, of persuasion, gives room and space for the Sophists to flourish. So the whole political structure and the whole cultural structure is very important for the rise of philosophy, the rise of thinking, and it's important to understand a little bit the connections among all these. So the Sophists were individuals who trained intellectually, who educated, and they did it for a fee. So if you had a son or daughter who you wanted them to excel, just think of it, they would be the equivalent of a liberal arts college. You want them to excel, you want them to acquire excellent thinking skills, critical thinking skills, excellent logical skills, excellent writing skills, and excellent communication skills, oral skills. Those were the three major sort of skills. It hasn't changed. This is where our core of the liberal arts comes from rhetoric, logic, and grammar. These were the things that were taught, and the Sophists were very good at it, and they could make you, they could imbibe in you certain character traits and skills and abilities that would allow you to succeed at whatever you did, whether you wanted to be whether you wanted to work in politics or in the military. These skills would always be helpful for you in life and would allow you to succeed, to build wealth, to be successful in society. So they were very sought after. They were paid very well, the Sophists, and they did an incredible job at training individuals and young men for success. So this is the idea of the Sophists. Okay, they taught, in some sense, the word arete in Greek is excellent, and the idea of virtue comes from there. They taught you how to be an excellent thinker, an excellent communicator, and things like this. Now, the difference, you see, rhetoric is wonderful and it's very powerful, but there's a difference between that and philosophy. And this is the central difference. The central difference is that philosophy wants to use good thinking and persuasion and oral skills and all of that, but it is not interested in success in the material sense, or wealth, or success in the sense that mainstream people think about success. Success for philosophy is the acquisition of truth, to seek truth and to learn, to obtain knowledge. That is the goal. It's not about, winning the argument or winning the debate. That is completely irrelevant. It's not about my argument or my position. It's about truth. We seek that which is true. Whether it's your view or my view, it doesn't matter whose view. There are no views, really. It's not a personal issue. We don't get upset when somebody shows us that we are incorrect in our arguments, because we are all interested in the same thing. It is a collaborative effort to obtain and seek truth. Now, this is very maybe naive, but this is what Socrates believes. And this is what separates Socrates from the Sophists. What happens with the power of rhetoric and this democratic, open society? What happens is that you realize that if you are really good at argumentation, you can prove anything. You can argue any position. What does this lead to? It leads to skepticism, because skepticism is the view that there is no truth, that we can't ultimately obtain certain truth. And the rhetoricians kind of demonstrate this, right? Because they show that, look, no matter what position you hold, I can provide counter arguments to undermine your position, and you can do back the same to me. And so there is no real position that we can say this is the right thing. So skepticism is the idea that we cannot obtain ultimate truth about any certain questions. You can have sort of narrow skepticism or sort of global skepticism. This is different from relativism. So relativists suggest a different view. Relativists suggest that truth is not objective. There's no common truth for all people. Instead, relativism says that truth is contingent. It's relative. It depends on the person and on the perspective. Relativism is a very complicated idea. For our purposes, we just need to understand Protagoras' idea, which might not be completely fair to Protagoras, but again, for our purposes, I think that we just want to understand relativism in a very simple way, and that is simply that there is no truth and that it is common to everyone. Instead, truth is relative to the individual. The idea that we, humans, are the measure or the criterion of truth is a relative uh, uh, dictum. It's a relative proposition, because a non-relativist would say we are not the measure of all things, right? We discover truth. The idea that we measure things, that we are the criterion, seems to suggest that we construct truth, that we make truth, that we create truth. And this is a relativist view of truth. So you can see how history, the war, democracy, an incredible leader, open society, all of this is very influential in the rise of the Sophists. And the Sophists' great power of argumentation and rhetoric opens the door to skepticisms about truth and relativism about truth. Okay, I'm going to take one lecture to talk just about Socrates. Right? Thank you very much.